You see, Anton, the thing about astrology is you got to integrate it into the mathematics of it all.
Hello, wonderful person. This is Anton, and today we're going to be talking about some new
I
discoveries
try to be
in
nice with
regards to
Anton
what
today
happens
because
around
it
black
almost
holes.
sounds like he's
And
saying
not
it
just
under
any
the
black
tone,
holes,
like
supermassive black
sending
holes.
a message
And in
out
this
here to
particular
Jean
case,
Grey. You
one
know
of
what
the
I mean?
recent
Like, I'm
studies
Jean
decided
Grey
to
and
investigate
Apocalypse
and
is
to
sending his
try
message
to
across
model
the
the
world.
formation of these
Well,
really,
firstly, we
really
have a black
humongous
hole.
waves that
Gravity
seem to
out,
be
pushes
created by
gas.
very
Gravity
unusual
wants to
effects
bring it
coming
back
from the
in,
center of the black
slows
hole.
it down,
The waves
pushes
that
it
the
out.
scientists refer to as
That's going to create a
tsunami
stack
waves.
wave inside
With
here.
this beautiful
IH would be the
illustration by
rational number
Nima
of
Kenar,
complex
sort
conjugatives
of showing us how
and
old this
elephant
might
fish.
look like. And depending on the size of the actual black hole, these tsunami
Well,
waves
the
could be
expansion
up to about
principle is
10
like,
light years
blah,
in
now
size.
here comes
And
all
so
the,
let's talk a little bit
and
more
then it
about
starts
this
to,
study
oh, what
and
if
the
you,
discovery,
this is the
starting
IH
with
on
the
it that you
idea
gotta
of
teach a
tsunamis
kid
here on Earth.
on that
So we know
system.
that
And I
on
try to
Earth,
break
for a
this
tsunami
off
to
to
form, usually
integrate
some
the
sort of
astrology
underwater event has to happen,
into
such as usually an earthquake
psychology,
or a sudden
right? Because
displacement
I'm going to be a
of matter
supermassive black
that then
hole.
creates
This is
a
going to create a
displacement of water.
tsunami
And here,
effect,
as a tsunami wave approaches the
IH, by
shore,
a calculable
it first
value amongst
decreases in
people
speed,
that would do
but
that. They
then
would
increases in
look at it and
size,
say,
and
oh,
eventually
that's
it
pulling
ends
a
up
bunch of
delivering a huge
information
amount
out
of
before
water and
something
can last
big
for
comes
anywhere
back
from a
inside
few
here
hours to
for,
possibly even a few days.
you
So
know,
this is tsunamis in
forever.
a nutshell.
I mean,
But by using a
flood,
computer
Nephilim.
modeling simulation,
People get out there and start doing numbers that, I give him his dues. That's why I said he's a supermassive black hole letting out a flood for about what that information looks like. I mean, here's the tsunami and here's the vortex, right? It has a little less to do with gravity and everything inside here. It's just this is pushing. There's going to be some ring inside here. This is pulled back in. It creates a click. That's going to make some kind of system, cosmic timelines relative to the human, macro, micro, general field theory to special relativity or quantum mechanics. Because remember, this is going to be talking about, this thing is a black hole, an IH. Has a matrix, I don't know which divergent flow it'll go, Heisenberg uncertainty, motion and position. Well, I give it a given mass. It's an Epson's accretion, or Epson's energy generator, right? And something in positions around it by quadrants on the right-hand rule says that's how I gauge the mass. I would say, well, let's index the dip in this to say that dip determines mass, or that rise over run. Inside here has a black body, has stars have black bodies, their IH, the irrational value inside of that. And once I give those numbers, we're going to stay inside of O-type stars and miniature black holes and massive black holes. They definitely do have, but at what ratio is all over the road towards the matrix of, well, we don't really understand. I get it, he's an astrologist, not a psychologist, but that's where the fire starting flood kind of gets into a bit of an issue with what it is. You know, it's just something we have to, it's just something, I would say from this standpoint of astrology, he's not an astrologist. He's, the reason he's so big on my index of it is because he makes his own indicating system without using the equipment that they're using. Now, why couldn't they present the same information? Why couldn't they make the parallel I or H? The value here, the shortest distance you're going to be able to go to it without a direct line to a telescope, which is competitive. You know, what happens when I find out one of those mathematicians does this presentation better and it has a better index, Anton? She's nasty, but that's the nature on this. You got to be able to handle the presentations better on scales and drawings and beat them to the index, so that way they have to now compensate for this differential, change the field, correct the energy, right? Because black hole Epson sphere generator, how do you determine black holes? You know, so I'm trying to pin off the terms using mathematics. You go EM, ME, FA, AF, you know, whatever the math is. I'm sure we all got a bunch of them from a different teacher, which are congruent with each other. And we both have to use those indicating systems, either 63 or 73. I expect it being something else to have a different value, but at least I could say if I tried their technique, astrology, on the macro, or the macro here, that I would see that IH is congruent still here. The mathematical environment, or sigma sum, still gives me a presentation at the end of this that kind of somebody's ability to lead that example. Now, when you get to it to numbers and mentions later on, it's like, well, how come somebody didn't pick him out for #1 Supremo on here for the numbers?
But slightly farther away, at a distance of maybe about 10 to 100 light years away from the black hole, in the region of this coal dust right here, this is actually where we start finding a lot of different activity.
And then you're going to pick those ones, not all of them everywhere, Anton. I'm telling you, it's like, these are the ones you do. This is what the world turns into before it starts to burn itself down. Like, why are we going to Mars?
The unusual ways
for funsies?
Right here, formed in various gases and in various liquids. Although in this case, the size of these vortices...
Great leader, great speaker, great problem. It doesn't matter what you would put into context for, but I understand he has momentum. Like, you gotta remind those kids out there, yes, astrology is what you get out of this, but not all of you are going to be astrologists. It's nasty.
It essentially is responsible for creating...
Right? You know, this stuff ain't nothing you want to play around with when you get into the parametric curves and the parametric areas mathematically. It's like, that's something you could have integrated into the set. Something they missed. Something like, oh, the black holes, the supermassives, and the little ones. And who's still indicating a black body of a gravitational pull against the standard in that space? It would form the sandbox. It would form the particle or the universal sandbox on the micro and macro in there. And I'm trying to pick it up. I'm trying to say, if he ever did watch this, that hopefully, that I'm not trying to be disrespectful in here, but I would rip Fox in the box. You know what I mean? I can still pick up on this because I don't know if they're fully exposed under the differential where somebody under there has to by the numbers. So, that's a different animal, Anton. But I suggest you go watch and get it out there without my value in there. See if you can do the same thing now. Just the relative perspective. You watched it without it. You watched it with this one first. You know, like, you have to make a differential in that singularity of which up, down, up, down, up, and down position you might be in. It's like, if none of this makes sense to you, understand you're in the down. Maybe the down up. It's like, you can do math, I'm sure you've done something, and I would know that enough. Otherwise, you're just born, or an 8-year-old that really can't quantify out of the singularity yet. You know, the school, the value, you should, it's gravity, schools are good, I'm not underselling some artificial gravity, it works. Anti-gravity boots. It's like when my stuff get wet, this number about how far this goes when the boss's numbers feet get wet, how much they're willing to do is still the same number.
From the black hole itself.
You know, we're walking through the mud here, brother. You know, oh boy. Now, I don't usually mind running out front for a guy like him. Yeah, I would, you know, I'm just trying to indicate some things that you could slip in. Maybe not this time, because obviously this happened. But maybe in the future how that could integrate into the complex conjugatives and the mass concept of the frontal cognitive functions of people inside here to condense this situation to a house. To say, it's like, well, when you talk about this, he's giving you the terms in a situation which may not be relative to the singular black hole that they reference, but you'll have to use a system like this in the other ones, otherwise it wouldn't be congruent on scale. You know, super small ones, super big ones. You know what makes a tidal wave? That's what he's telling me by the numbers. They're going to push it. How much does the little ones do it? Does a star do this? Can you do this? The answer is yes, but you may not know the recipe or the steps.
Nevertheless, it's still a really, really cool proposition and something that I'm definitely going to be covering in some of the future videos. Until then, thanks for watching, subscribe if you still haven't, share this with someone who has learned about space and sciences, and maybe come back tomorrow to learn
something else. Maybe support this